Hi, I'm Nid. I'm a wellnesspreneur, have been doing it online for a couple of years, and I also do some business consulting for various people in the wellness space, especially with helping them digitize and take their businesses online. And I'm sharing some tips with you guys to help you with this transition online. And today, in response to quite a few requests to help you with what are the documents you need, what's the paperwork, there's lots of words being thrown around, and there's a little bit of uncertainty about what some of those things might be. So I'm going to try and cover off some of those with you guys. The first thing is to say that what I do is not legal advice. It's for information only, and it's for you to take this information and empower yourselves in having a go at writing your own wording, thinking about what it is that you're doing and how it applies in your business. I try to give you some examples that are fairly generic and are for you to work out how you're going to apply them in your business situation. And all of us have different business situations depending on our local area and also our intention to expand globally, maybe. So I'm kind of giving you this as a bit of an example of a light touch disclaimer. The reason why I'm doing that is because that's the kind of thing that you might be thinking about if you're doing pre-recorded content like this, a pre-recorded video that's just left available to people. And that's just to try and limit your own liability in your pre-recorded content, just in case somebody were to hurt themselves during their activity or to make some decision that they wouldn't have done otherwise without watching your video. So that would be a disclaimer, and we often stick it on pre-made content. So you could also include it in Word documents, on an audio file, or in a picture or a book, say. So I've jumped straight in to tell you that, which wasn't really my plan. My other plan was to tell you a little bit about some of the key principles that we want to think about in our documentation. So laws are designed to reflect our culture's local values, and that means that laws can be quite different in different places. So it's always the best thing to get the local advice of your own lawyer in your area. But if you're going online, you're probably thinking of trying to expand beyond your local reach into something that's more global. And there are some international treaties around that help us with governing certain minimum standards that might be complied with, but not all countries sign up to those treaties. So that means that your country may not need to comply with one law where another country has quite strict rules. And just because your business is based where you live, and that's where your insurer has originally given you coverage, doesn't mean that you may not need to comply with local laws if you start to perform your business in another area. So you may want to stage your process and your release of your business depending on your insurance and also your comfort and confidence with learning about these different laws. When going online, we might need different documents depending on what it is we're planning on doing to make money. So if we're doing pre-recorded videos, these might be different from a live class. And what documents you need are going to be variable depending on what it is you're planning on doing. So it's really important to have an idea of what your first launch of your business model is going to be, whether that's going to be jumping into live classes straight away and that's what you want to do, and then maybe you add in recording some, and then maybe you stick them up as pre-recorded videos in some kind of service where people pay a subscription. So you can build your model. But most likely you have jumped into online live teaching because that's a very natural progression from our live classes. And with your online live classes, you want to have some of the similar documents that you have in the studio. So a waiver for any injury or damage to personal property is going to be applicable online, and you'd probably want to stick that at the sign up point when somebody is joining your class, whether that's paid or not paid. And when we move online, we just probably want to think about adding into that waiver the fact that they're responsible for their own space around them while they're doing the practice, and also considering that they may have issues with their computer, such as being hacked or viruses. It's been Zoom bombing going on with the Zoom platform. So just adding into your waiver that you're not liable for anything like that, should that happen to their computer and they have some kind of financial loss, like they can't work because they can't use their computer, or they lose all of their business files because the computer is now wiped. So adding in that extra layer of protection into your waivers is going to be really helpful for you. You may also be deciding to record your clients, so that means you're going to be wanting to get their permission to video and record them, and so you'll probably want to be adding that into your terms and conditions up front, and preferably getting express consent from them in order to give you that permission. So the best thing is to update some health forms or update your booking process. And what you want to be thinking about is whichever booking platform you're using to take your bookings, whether it has capacity for you to have a tick box next to the booking that says that they accept your terms and conditions, or whether or not you need to send them an email and ask them to agree to these terms and conditions that have been updated. And as part of that notice about your waiver and your permissions, you probably want to have some kind of term of booking, especially if you're taking payment. You want to have in something probably around your refund and cancellation policy. So that's where we want to have terms and conditions, terms of sale, terms of service, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't really matter. It's a contract that is the terms on which you are providing your service to your client. And in that, you want to be including things about payment, as much as adding in those waivers and the permissions and anything else that you can think of that's going to apply to what you're offering with your live classes. You can also relink to those terms and conditions in email confirmations for classes as well. And then remind people during class of taking care of themselves, so the self-responsibility that goes into the waiver, and also double checking permissions, telling them to turn off their mics or their videos if they don't want to be recorded during that live class. If your next level of business is launching into pre-recorded videos, then you want to be thinking about a disclaimer. So a disclaimer is where we don't get agreement from anybody. We're just putting it out there that we are not going to be liable should something happen to somebody by the consequence of using that video. If you're just putting a video on YouTube, that's probably all you need. However, if you're going to have your own website, or you're going to start to collect emails and build a database from your video content on YouTube, say, or Vimeo, you want to then add in a privacy policy. And that privacy policy will need to protect your clients from capturing their data. Your last option may be that you've started developing a course or a program, and that could be a combination of live and of the pre-recorded content. And if you're doing that, then you need to consider all of those documents that I already mentioned, but you also want to be considering how that looks as a final package. So are you including your clients all having a group to chat and connect? Then you want to be thinking about adding in some group forum discussion on how they all interact within the Facebook group that you may have created, and that you're going to monitor and manage how that group is interacted according to those terms. You also will be wanting to ensure that you've got those terms of sale, you've got the privacy policy, any relevant disclaimers for pre-recorded content, and if there's live stuff, try and get a waiver and the permission if you're going to be recording them during those live sessions. With all of these, we're looking at privacy policy if we're collecting any data, and it's quite likely that you are trying to collect some kind of data so that you've got an audience that you're going to target. And in that case, you need a privacy policy regardless of any of the models that I've already talked about. The other thing to note is that website terms can also combine with your terms of sale and booking so that it becomes one document, and that can be a bit easier to manage. You're looking for website terms to just explain use of the website in terms of people potentially putting viruses on your site or trying to hack your site. But also, if you're doing other activity on your site, say a blog that has comment posts, you also want to include something about managing the blog content and what kind of user-generated posts can be created, and that you could maybe delete those if you don't find that they're appropriate to your website. I also mentioned something called a cookie policy, these little files that follow us around on the internet so that we get the advertising that's perfectly targeted to us. And that can be as simple as getting Google Analytics, sticking it into the code on your website, and then you see people coming from your Facebook page to your website. And that can be really useful data for you in terms of knowing how to target and develop your website. So you'll want to be telling people that that's what you're doing on a cookie policy. And that cookie policy can be, again, kind of brought into your privacy policy because, again, it's about watching people and their behavior effectively. If you're looking to grow your business and develop it further, say adding advertising to your website if it's getting lots of visitors, or you want to do affiliate marketing, which is where you put in a link to your website of products that you'd recommend people buy from another third party, and you get a payment back from that party for every sale that comes through from your site. In both of those two scenarios, we want to add disclaimers to the website, especially at the points where the advertising and with affiliate marketing, where the links are placed, being really clear that you are receiving money. And then lastly, perhaps you start to look to do some collaborations. Partnering with other wellbeing experts to help expand your market and your offerings is a really great way to grow your business. You'll need to be thinking about who's in charge of what documents and what processes. You also want to just agree any of the changes maybe in your terms to payment and refund and cancellations, should that be different from what you normally do on your own because your collaborator has a different set of terms and conditions. When it comes to the collaborations, it's really good practice to ask clients to sign up to each email list separately so that it's really clear that that's what they're going to be getting. The other way in which you can collect data as you're growing is to be part of a summit online, which is where you have a collection of different presenters who speak and share their expertise. And normally with this kind of a project, you would be collecting your own marketing list through your presentation. And so you don't come across that same issue as you might do with other collaborations about sharing data and just being really clear about whether or not your clients are signing up to two people's email lists rather than just one. This is a lot to think about in growing your business. I've given a big overview summary of the kind of documents that you need, and I'll try and start going into a bit more detail with some of them in future videos. But next coming up is going to be some of the intellectual property considerations of making videos with our studios and with partners. Let me know if you've got any questions. Go to my website, subscribe to my email if you're interested in the program that I am developing. The people on my mailing list will be getting a super discounted rate for being the first people to try it out. And I'd love to hear any more of your requests or feedback in how you're finding getting your business online. Take care and thanks so much.